At midnight, I still believed my wife was coming home. That sentence sounds pathetic now, but back then, I sat at our kitchen island staring at the glow from the garage keypad, replaying Claire's last words from 6 hours earlier. Showing a property downtown. Might run late. Real estate had trained her voice into something polished and frictionless. Every sentence came wrapped in confidence. Every excuse landed clean. For years, I respected that about her. That night, I studied it like evidence. My whiskey had gone warm beside my laptop. Her location sharing vanished at 9:14 p.m. Battery dead, maybe. Signal loss, maybe. Except Claire treated her phone like an oxygen tank. She charged it beside the bed, beside the sink, inside her SUV. The woman carried portable battery packs in her purse. At 12:17, I opened our Verizon account and checked device activity. Her line still pinged towers every few minutes around downtown Dallas. Active signal. Active movement. My stomach tightened slowly, the way a ratchet locks one click at a time. I pulled up our joint Amex account next. 2 charges hit within 40 minutes. One at a rooftop bar on Main Street. Another at a valet garage attached to the Belmont Crescent Hotel. 5-star place. Privacy elevators. Underground parking. Corporate affairs loved that building because nobody asked questions there. I zoomed into the timestamp. 10:42 p.m. Claire hated valet parking. Said strangers touched the steering wheel too much. But somebody used valet tonight. Somebody tipped $18 on my card. I leaned back and looked across the kitchen toward the framed photo from our 10th anniversary trip to Aspen. Claire smiling into the camera, hand resting against my chest. People always talk about betrayal like a lightning strike. Instant, violent, dramatic. Truth works slower. Truth behaves like rust inside steel. Quiet corrosion. Structural failure hiding under paint. Over the last 8 months, Claire rebuilt herself in pieces while pretending our marriage still stood upright. New gym membership. New perfume. New passwords. She started carrying cash after 15 years of using cards for everything. 3 months ago, she opened a separate checking account under her maiden name. I found that by accident while organizing tax documents for our CPA. When I asked about it, she smiled and said, "Professional separation. Cleaner for commissions." I accepted it because men like me trust patterns. We trust routines. We trust mortgage payments and shared calendars and Sunday grocery lists. We trust women who kiss us goodbye before work. Around 1:06 a.m., I opened the Find My app again out of pure habit. Her location still stayed dark. Then something strange happened. Her old iPad upstairs lit up under connected devices. 1 second, maybe less. Long enough for sync activity. My pulse sharpened instantly. I climbed the stairs, grabbed the tablet from her office desk, and opened recent app usage. Uber, Safari, Messages. Most cleared manually. Claire always cleaned devices during flights or open houses. Tonight, she missed one thing. The cached map request still sat buried under system memory. Belmont Crescent Hotel. Room level access route. Elevator B. My jaw locked hard enough to ache. Suddenly the silence inside the house felt organized. Planned. Intentional. Then my phone vibrated against the granite countertop downstairs. One text message. Claire's name across the screen. 3 words changed the temperature in my bloodstream. Don't wait up. But beneath the message preview sat something far worse. A photo attachment downloading slowly onto my phone. The photo finished loading 1 line at a time, like my phone wanted to spare me from the full impact. First came the marble countertop. Then 2 cocktail glasses. Then Claire's hand resting beside a man's Rolex against white hotel sheets. Her wedding ring still sat on her finger. That detail cut deeper than the photo itself. People think betrayal arrives through dramatic moments. Loud arguments. Lipstick stains. Confessions. Real betrayal hides inside casual confidence. Claire sent that picture because she believed she controlled the board. She believed I would spiral, beg, threaten, maybe drink myself sick while she rewrote our marriage into a story where I deserved replacement. I zoomed in slowly. Jason Reed. Same watch from his Instagram photos. Same tattoo near the wrist. Same tailored cuff links from the charity gala 6 months earlier. Claire once joked that Jason spent more money on watches than most people spend on mortgages. Funny what the brain archives when love still lives inside a house. My chest tightened for maybe 5 seconds. Then something colder took over. Precision. I opened my MacBook and started documenting everything. Screenshot folder. Timestamps. Metadata extraction. File origin. Image compression details. Claire forgot one important thing about me. I wired commercial buildings for 18 years. I build systems. I trace failures. I follow currents until I find the overload point. Emotions came later. Evidence came first. I saved the image into 3 encrypted folders and pulled the embedded data using a photo analysis utility I kept from an old side job. Most people strip location data automatically. Claire's image still carried partial device logs because she forwarded it through direct text instead of a secure app. Latitude coordinates pointed exactly where I expected. Belmont Crescent Hotel. Floor access matched elevator B from the cached route upstairs. She had become sloppy. Sloppy people grow arrogant. Arrogant people leave trails. At 1:43 a.m., another transaction appeared on our Amex account. Room service. 2 smoked ribeye dinners. Expensive bourbon. Chocolate-covered strawberries. Claire always ordered strawberries when she celebrated closings with clients. My fingers hovered over the keyboard while I opened our monthly financial spreadsheet. 7 months earlier, she increased transfers into her separate account from $2,000 monthly to nearly $9,000. Commission spikes explained part of it. The rest came from hidden cash withdrawals she disguised through vendor reimbursements from her brokerage firm. I saw the pattern instantly. Liquidity preparation. Exit planning. Somebody coached her. Jason owned 3 rental properties and 2 shell LLCs tied to real estate consulting. Men like him treated divorce the same way they treated acquisitions. Smile first. Strip assets later. I opened county records and searched business registrations under Claire's maiden name. One result appeared 30 seconds later. Crescent Horizon Holdings, LLC. Registered 4 months ago. Mailing address linked to a virtual office 20 minutes from downtown. My pulse slowed instead of rising. That scared me more than anger would have. I kept digging. The registered agent field listed a legal firm I recognized immediately because my company once used them during a contract dispute. High-end family litigation. Aggressive. Surgical. Claire had prepared this long before tonight. The photo served one purpose. Pressure. She wanted emotional chaos before legal execution. Force me into mistakes. Empty accounts. Angry texts. Rash decisions. Men destroy themselves every day trying to react faster than betrayal unfolds. I stood from the kitchen island and walked upstairs toward her office again. Something kept bothering me about the timing. Claire sent the image at exactly 3:11 a.m. Too deliberate. Too clean. Then I saw it sitting half-hidden beneath a stack of staging catalogs on her desk. A second phone. Powered on. Screen glowing softly. And across the lock screen sat a notification from Jason Reed. He opened the bait yet? That message changed the entire shape of the night. He opened the bait yet? I stared at the glowing screen in Claire's office and felt the last soft piece of my marriage snap clean in half. The affair hurt. The setup interested me more. Affairs grow from impulse. Operations grow from planning. Claire and Jason built an operation. I picked up the second phone carefully and checked the battery percentage first. 83%. Recently charged. Recent devices tell stories faster than people do. The lock screen preview showed 3 unread texts from Jason. One from a contact saved as Melissa Legal. Another from somebody listed only as K. I carried the phone downstairs, plugged it into a portable Faraday sleeve from my workbench drawer, and blocked incoming signals before touching anything else. Electricians learn fast that systems leave fingerprints. Digital systems leave entire skeletons. By 2:10 in the morning, I sat at the kitchen island with 3 devices open, 1 legal pad filled front and back, and our last 12 months of financial statements spread across granite like evidence in a federal case. Claire thought emotionally. Jason thought strategically. Together, they still moved too fast. Fast people leak details. I started with bank transfers. 7 outgoing wires from our joint savings moved into external accounts under amounts designed to avoid automatic fraud review. 9,000 here, 8,000 there. Always after one of Claire's late closings. Then I found the first ugly detail. 6 weeks earlier, she increased my life insurance coverage through her brokerage's preferred financial planner. $5 million. Accidental death rider included. My jaw tightened hard enough to ache again. Maybe coincidence. Maybe preparation. Either option poisoned the room. I opened county court records next. Jason Reed finalized his divorce 14 months ago after moving nearly every major asset into holding companies before filing. Rental properties shifted ownership 3 months before separation. Business vehicles disappeared into leasing structures. Liquid cash dropped below reporting thresholds. His ex-wife walked away with furniture and a settlement smaller than one annual commission check. The pattern sat right there in public records for anybody patient enough to read it. Claire married emotion. Jason mentored ambition. Somewhere along the line, those two things fused into greed. At 2:37 a.m., the hidden phone buzzed again inside the signal sleeve. I slid it halfway open and read the preview through the mesh. Jason again. He goes reactive, we control timing. He goes quiet, we accelerate filing Monday. My pulse slowed even further. Men like Jason always expect explosions because they measure masculinity through ego. He wanted screaming. Property damage. Angry messages. Enough instability for Claire's lawyer to paint me into a corner before I even realized a courtroom waited ahead. Instead, I opened a fresh spreadsheet and started building a timeline. Date. Transfer. Device activity. Hotel usage. Legal contact. Every lie entered a clean row with timestamps beside it. I worked until sunrise sharpened against the kitchen windows. Around 6:15, I finally opened the hidden phone fully using facial recognition. Claire had trusted convenience over caution. The device unlocked instantly with a saved alternate appearance scan. Hundreds of messages loaded at once. Some flirtation, some logistics, some financial planning. Then one thread stopped my breathing cold. Melissa Legal sent Claire a PDF attachment 3 days earlier. Subject line, draft petition strategy. I opened the document slowly and reached page 4 before my hands finally froze over the keyboard. Claire planned to accuse me of emotional instability, financial intimidation, and controlling behavior. Attached beneath the allegations sat something far worse. Screenshots from inside my own house. Photos taken from angles that should never have existed. The first photo showed me asleep on the couch 6 months earlier with an empty bourbon glass beside my hand. The second captured me arguing with a subcontractor over unpaid materials during a stressful remodel job. The third showed prescription bottles lined across our bathroom counter after my shoulder surgery. Claire labeled each image carefully inside the draft petition. Alcohol dependency indicators. Anger escalation. Medication misuse concerns. My breathing slowed into something dangerous. She built a version of me designed for a courtroom. Every photo stripped context away and replaced it with implication. That realization hurt more than the affair because affairs require selfishness. Fabrication requires rehearsal. I enlarged each image and studied the framing angles. Kitchen corner. Upstairs hallway. Living room bookshelf. Claire installed interior cameras inside our home months ago. Hidden once. I stood immediately and walked room to room with my phone flashlight and a portable RF detector from my electrical kit. First device sat inside a smoke detector above the living room beam. Second inside a decorative clock near the staircase. Third behind the vent cover facing my office desk. Jason and Claire wanted reactions. They wanted emotional footage. Every exhausted sigh, every stressful phone call, every private moment became future ammunition. I removed nothing. Smart people leave surveillance untouched once they discover it. Discovery changes behavior. Behavior exposes awareness. Awareness alerts predators. Instead, I mapped every device location onto graph paper from my workshop and adjusted my movement patterns mentally. By 7:20 a.m., Claire still had not returned home. Another message appeared on the hidden phone from Melissa Legal. Judge assignment looks favorable if filing happens Monday morning. Attached beneath it sat a checklist. Secure emotional evidence. Trigger financial movement. Establish fear narrative. Encourage verbal escalation. Reading those lines felt like opening blueprints for my own demolition. Claire planned this long before Jason entered the picture. Jason simply refined the strategy. I walked into my office and opened the fireproof safe behind my drafting cabinet. Inside sat every major financial document tied to our lives. Mortgage statements, retirement accounts, business contracts, insurance policies, trust paperwork from my late father. I spent the next 3 hours scanning everything into encrypted cloud storage under a separate business server I used for commercial clients. Then I made the first real move of the war. I called Daniel Mercer. 49 years old. Family attorney. Former Marine. Quiet man with the emotional warmth of reinforced concrete. He answered on the second ring. Something finally broke? He asked calmly. I stared toward the hidden camera near the vent while I answered. I need asset protection before Monday. Silence held for half a second. Then Daniel spoke with a tone that stripped all emotion away. How much time do we have? Less than 48 hours. Do they know you know? They think I am still bleeding. Daniel exhaled once. Good. Keep them confident. Those 3 words steadied me more than whiskey ever could. We scheduled an emergency meeting at his office for noon under one of his holding companies, so Claire's legal searches would miss the appointment. After the call ended, I transferred half of my business operating reserve into a protected payroll account tied exclusively to active employee obligations. Legal, traceable, untouchable during preliminary filing attempts. Then I froze every joint credit line above $500 through fraud prevention protocols. Temporary security review. No accusations. No confrontation. Just friction. Jason wanted chaos. I started building barriers instead. Around 9:11 a.m., the garage door finally opened downstairs. I stayed seated in my office chair and watched the hidden camera feed mirrored quietly across my tablet screen. Claire stepped inside wearing yesterday's dress, carrying expensive coffee, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Then she smiled toward the kitchen island before speaking softly into her phone. He is still here. Perfect. Claire walked into the kitchen carrying herself like somebody returning from a business trip instead of an overnight affair and legal ambush. Hair brushed perfectly. Makeup repaired. Controlled smile calibrated for damage management. She placed the coffee carrier on the counter and called my name with soft concern folded into every syllable. Ethan. I watched her through the mirrored tablet feed for 3 full seconds before walking downstairs. Years of marriage train you to recognize performance. Claire used to smile with her eyes. This version used angles. You were up early, she said carefully when I entered the kitchen. I looked at the coffees first. 2 cups. 1 black, 1 vanilla oat milk latte. Mine and hers. Muscle memory still lived inside her even while betrayal sat fresh under her skin. That almost made me laugh. Could not sleep, I answered calmly. Her shoulders loosened slightly. She expected rage by now. Maybe shattered glass. Maybe accusations. Instead, I pulled my coffee closer and took 1 sip while watching her study my face like a lawyer reading a jury. My phone died downtown, she said. Melissa drank too much after the closing dinner, so I stayed at her condo. Every sentence came polished. Preloaded. I pictured the hidden cameras catching my reaction from 3 different angles while Claire quietly collected emotional footage for court exhibits. So I gave her nothing. No spike. No collapse. Just measured silence. That unsettled her more than shouting ever would. Long night? I asked. Her eyes flickered once. Tiny movement. Most people miss microexpressions because they listen emotionally instead of analytically. Brutal, she answered. Clients turn the whole thing into chaos. Chaos. Interesting word choice from a woman orchestrating psychological warfare inside her own home. I nodded slowly and opened my laptop right there at the kitchen island. Payroll spreadsheet. Employee subcontractor invoices. Deliberately boring. Claire stood frozen for half a second beside the counter because the script in her head suddenly lost rhythm. Jason probably prepared her for emotional confrontation. Men like him study dominance. They struggle with restraint. You are working from home? She asked carefully. Half day, I answered. Meeting downtown later. Her posture tightened instantly. She feared meetings now because meetings meant lawyers, bankers, accountants, investigators. Affairs thrive inside secrecy. Exposure kills momentum. Claire moved toward the sink and reached automatically for her second hidden phone before remembering she left it upstairs. That tiny pause confirmed everything. I almost respected the discipline it took for her to recover without flinching. Almost. Around 10:04, her primary phone buzzed against the marble counter. Jason's name flashed across the screen before she flipped it face down too late. I watched her pulse jump at the base of her throat. You should answer, I said calmly. Might be important. Claire forced a quick smile. Just work. Another lie placed gently between us like folded linen over a corpse. She carried the phone toward the hallway, but I spoke again before she reached the stairs. Claire. She turned immediately. I reviewed the Amex charges last night. There it was. Real fear. Fast. Sharp. Unfiltered. Her breathing changed first. Then her jaw. Then the calculator behind her eyes started running scenarios at machine speed. Fraud alert triggered because of the hotel charge. I continued evenly. You should probably call them before they freeze the account. Relief washed across her face so visibly it almost embarrassed me to watch. She thought I still stood outside the real story. She thought the battlefield remained hidden beneath her control. Right, she said quickly. Melissa used my card by accident during valet. I nodded once like a man accepting a reasonable explanation. Then I watched her leave the kitchen and hurry upstairs toward the hidden phone she thought I had never seen. The second she disappeared, my laptop screen lit up with a new encrypted message from Daniel Mercer. One sentence. One attachment. You need to see who funded Crescent Horizon Holdings. Daniel's attachment opened into 12 pages of corporate filings, transfer records, and private banking summaries connected through 3 shell companies across Texas and Nevada. I scanned the ownership chain twice before the truth fully landed. Crescent Horizon Holdings received its startup capital from an account tied to my own electrical contracting company. Jason and Claire had been siphoning money through manipulated vendor invoices for almost a year. Small amounts at first. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000. Numbers subtle enough to disappear inside large commercial projects unless somebody audited labor allocation line by line. My chest tightened with something colder than anger. Violation changes shape when betrayal enters your finances. Love wounds pride. Theft rewrites trust entirely. I opened the accounting software for Walker Integrated Systems and started tracing invoice codes against completed projects. 3 subcontractors listed under Claire's shell company never existed. Fake consulting expenses. Fake staging reimbursements. Fake permit expediting fees. Jason used his real estate network to bury the fraud under legitimate development paperwork. Smart structure. Dangerous structure. Federal structure. Around 11:20 a.m., I reached Daniel's office downtown carrying 2 encrypted drives and a printed binder thick enough to break a table corner. Daniel sat behind his desk wearing reading glasses low across his nose while reviewing the evidence silently. He spoke only after 40 straight minutes of scanning transactions. This stopped being divorce strategy 6 figures ago, he said evenly. This becomes criminal exposure if we push hard enough. I leaned back slowly in the leather chair and stared toward the window behind him. For the first time since the photo arrived, real leverage entered the room. Jason built his entire identity around reputation. Luxury developments. Country club investors. Charity boards. Men like him survive through controlled image management. Fraud investigations poison those ecosystems fast. Daniel opened another folder and slid it across the desk toward me. Emergency asset shielding documents. Temporary operational trust transfer. Financial injunction preparation. Every page designed for speed. You move today, he said calmly. Monday becomes too late if they already prepared filing. I signed everything without hesitation. Signature after signature. Marriage teaches compromise. Betrayal teaches efficiency. By early afternoon, Daniel's firm secured emergency protections around my business operating structure, commercial payroll accounts, and equipment holdings. Claire expected emotional warfare. Instead, she walked straight into legal engineering. Before leaving, Daniel handed me a prepaid phone and one final piece of advice. People running coordinated manipulation usually overcommunicate once pressure starts. Stay quiet. Let paranoia work for you. He turned out to be right almost immediately. At 2:14 p.m., Claire called 3 times in under 6 minutes while I sat inside my truck reviewing transaction histories from a secured hotspot connection. Then Jason called from a blocked number. Then Melissa Legal emailed requesting clarification regarding the temporary freeze on joint credit expansion. They felt movement already. Good. Pressure creates mistakes. I drove home slowly and parked half a block away instead of entering through the garage. Through the front windows, I spotted Claire pacing across the kitchen with her hidden phone pressed tight against her ear. Her body language looked different now. Faster. Sharper. Predatory confidence had cracked into calculation. I entered through the side door, quietly enough to hear her before she realized I stood inside the house. Then accelerated. She whispered harshly into the phone. He moved money this morning. Silence. Then her voice dropped lower. I do not care what Melissa says. Anymore. If Ethan found the transfers, we have bigger problems. My pulse stayed steady while I stepped closer down the hallway. Claire turned suddenly and froze the second she saw me standing there. Fear flashed across her face for the first time since this entire thing started. Real fear. Then her phone speaker crackled loudly enough for me to hear Jason Reed's voice through the kitchen air. "Claire," he said sharply. "Tell me he is not there right now." Claire ended the call so fast the screen almost slipped from her hand. For one suspended second, we stood across the kitchen staring at each other like strangers forced into the same elevator after a building fire. Her breathing sharpened first. Mine stayed level. Calm changes power inside a room faster than shouting ever will. "Who was that?" I asked quietly. Claire recovered fast. Too fast for innocence. "A client," she answered while sliding the phone behind her back. Reflex. Protection. Lawyers teach people to hide evidence with body language long before words enter the fight. I nodded once and walked past her toward the refrigerator like a man concerned about dinner instead of betrayal and fraud. That confused her again. Confusion became my greatest weapon because Claire built this entire operation around emotional prediction. Every trap she prepared required panic. Every legal strategy required instability. I denied her both. "You moved money," she said carefully behind me. There it was. Straight to finances. Straight to fear. Affairs create emotion. Conspiracies create accounting anxiety. I grabbed a bottle of water and turned slowly. "Payroll reserves," I answered. Quarterly tax exposure looked messy. Claire studied my face hard enough to leave fingerprints. "Without discussing it." "Since when do you discuss separate accounts?" Silence hit the kitchen like a snapped cable. Tiny sentence. "Surgical damage." Her eyes narrowed immediately because she realized the line carried information she never expected me to discover. I watched her brain start rebuilding timelines in real time. Bank statements. Transfer records. Shell companies. Somewhere inside that panic, Jason's voice probably echoed through her. Memory warning her that smart men become dangerous once they stop arguing emotionally. "You went through my accounts?" she asked sharply. Interesting choice again. She skipped denial entirely. "Joint tax review," I answered calmly. "Your bookkeeping got sloppy." That word landed exactly where I wanted. Sloppy. People managing deception hate that word because it attacks competence instead of morality. Claire crossed her arms tightly and shifted into attack mode. "You have become paranoid lately, Ethan." There it was. First soft attempt at narrative positioning. Emotional instability. Controlling behavior. Hypervigilance. Melissa Legal probably drafted the language already. I almost admired the discipline. Almost. "Maybe," I answered with a shrug. Still caught the fake vendor invoices, though. Her face lost color instantly. Real color. Real fear. Every polished layer cracked for half a heartbeat before she forced composure back into place. Too late. I saw enough. "I do not know what you think you found," she said carefully now. Then explained Crescent Horizon Holdings. Silence. Total silence. Claire looked toward the hallway automatically, like escape routes might appear inside drywall. "Jason helped me structure investments," she said finally. "You buried company money through shell reimbursements," I interrupted softly. "You staged evidence inside this house. You installed surveillance cameras. You coordinated legal strategy before manufacturing emotional incidents." Each sentence tightened the air further. Claire's breathing turned shallow while her fingers squeezed the hidden phone hard enough to whiten her knuckles. Then something shifted behind her eyes. Calculation returned. "You accessed my private devices?" she asked quietly. There it was again. Another pivot. Another attempt to reposition me as the aggressor. Daniel warned me about this exact maneuver hours earlier. Predators collapse backward into victimhood once exposure corners them. "You recorded me for months inside my own home," I answered evenly. "That conversation ends before it starts." Claire opened her mouth again, but her hidden phone vibrated violently in her hand before she could speak. 1. Message preview flashed bright enough for both of us to see it. "Melissa Legal." 3 words. "Federal subpoena risk." Claire's eyes widened instantly. Then for the first time since this nightmare began, I watched her realize something terrifying. The game she built around destroying me had suddenly grown bigger than divorce. Claire locked herself inside the downstairs guest room 30 minutes after reading Melissa's message. I heard drawers opening fast. Closet doors. Suitcase wheels scraping hardwood. Panic changes rhythm inside a house. The The same woman who once moved through rooms like she owned gravity now operated like somebody outrunning collapse. I stayed at the kitchen island reviewing transaction logs while Daniel's forensic accountant remote accessed my company records through an encrypted tunnel. Every 10 minutes another discrepancy surfaced. Fake invoices tied to shell vendors. Inflated permit reimbursements. Consulting payments routed through Crescent Horizon Holdings before landing inside a private investment account linked to Jason Reed. Claire and Jason stole just under $400,000 across 11 months. Small enough to hide, large enough for prosecutors to care. Around 4:40 p.m., Daniel called through the secure line. Federal exposure escalated, he said immediately. Jason used interstate transfers across 3 entities. Wire fraud statutes apply now. I leaned back slowly while staring toward the closed guest room door. Claire still thought divorce sat at the center of this disaster. She had not realized the battlefield shifted toward criminal liability hours ago. How hard can they run? I asked. Daniel exhaled once. Hard enough to flip on each other. That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended because betrayal always follows the same gravity pattern. Partners stay loyal while profits flow upward. Fear reverses the current instantly. At 5:12 p.m., the guest room door opened. Claire stepped out carrying a leather overnight bag and the careful expression of somebody rebuilding composure from spare parts. I need space for a few days, she said evenly. I closed my laptop slowly and studied her face. Puffy eyes. Tight. Jaw. Mascara repaired twice. At Melissa's condo again? I asked. Claire flinched almost invisibly. Tiny movement. Enough. I think that is best right now. For legal coordination? Silence. She adjusted the strap on her bag and avoided eye contact for the first time in 12 years of marriage. That detail hurt more than the affair itself. Guilty people stop looking directly at the person they betrayed because eye contact forces humanity back into the room. You already chose your exit months ago, I said calmly. At least respect me enough to stop rehearsing lines. Claire's eyes sharpened immediately. Defensive instincts returned because truth strips performance away fast. You think you understand what happened here, she answered quietly. I understand enough. No, she snapped suddenly. You understand spreadsheets, work orders, equipment schedules. You spent years treating this marriage like another project file. There it was. Real emotion finally breaking through strategy. Claire stepped closer while anger pushed color back into her face. Jason listened to me. Jason saw me. I almost laughed at the timing. Men like Jason always arrive polished during emotional droughts somebody else helped build. Jason saw leverage. I answered. That man ran asset transfers before his own divorce even finalized. Claire froze. Full stop. Her breathing changed instantly because she realized I knew far more than I should. What exactly have you done today? She asked carefully now. Another good question. I stood slowly from the kitchen stool and walked toward her until only the island separated us. Enough to survive what you planned, I answered. Then I slid a printed document across the marble countertop toward her. Temporary injunction notice. Corporate fraud preservation order. Crescent Horizon Holdings highlighted in bold legal text. Claire looked down once, and all remaining color drained from her face. You filed something? She whispered. Daniel filed it 27 minutes ago. Her hands started shaking while reading the second page because Jason Reed's name appeared beneath hers under preliminary investigation language. Then her hidden phone buzzed again. Inside her purse. This time she answered immediately on speaker without realizing it. Jason's voice exploded through the kitchen sharp with panic. Claire, the bank froze our development account. What the hell did Ethan do? Jason kept talking through the phone, while Claire stood frozen beside the kitchen island gripping the injunction papers hard enough to wrinkle the edges. The investors are calling me directly now, he snapped through the speaker. Somebody flagged the wire transfers. Melissa says we need damage control immediately. Claire looked at me with the kind of fear that only arrives when manipulation fails in real time. For months, she and Jason controlled momentum. They controlled timing. They controlled information. Then one quiet night shattered the entire structure because they underestimated the man sitting across from them. I watched Claire slowly lower herself into the kitchen chair like her legs suddenly forgot how to hold weight. Jason, she whispered carefully into the phone. Stop talking for a minute. He ignored her instantly. Panic stripped his polished confidence away layer by layer. Listen to me, he continued sharply. You need to stick to the emotional abuse narrative. If Ethan escalates, we use the recordings. Melissa says judges respond fast when mental instability enters the filing. Claire closed her eyes hard after hearing that sentence out loud inside our kitchen. Secrets lose power once spoken publicly, especially ugly ones. I leaned against the counter calmly, while Jason kept digging his own grave one sentence at a time. Did he see the draft petition? Jason asked suddenly. Did he access your second phone? Silence answered him. Then came the sound of realization. Claire, he said slowly now. What exactly happened inside that house today? She looked up at me finally. Real exhaustion sat behind her eyes now. Real consequences too. Everything, she whispered. Jason cursed under his breath. The line disconnected 2 seconds later. Just like that. The great strategist vanished the second exposure touched his own skin. That part almost disappointed me. Men like Jason always speak about loyalty while risk stays. Theoretical. Fear reveals character faster than romance ever does. Claire stared at the dark phone screen for several long seconds before speaking again. You already destroyed him. I shook my head slowly. He destroyed himself the moment he treated people like assets instead of human beings. The kitchen fell quiet after that. Heavy quiet. Final quiet. Claire looked around the room slowly like she finally understood the cost of every decision hiding inside the walls. The hidden cameras. The staged evidence. The shell accounts. The lies stacked carefully month after month until the entire marriage turned into a legal operation. When did you stop loving me? She asked softly. Strange question. Affairs always make people believe love dies suddenly. Truth works differently. Love erodes under disrespect long before betrayal enters the picture. Probably around the time you started collecting evidence against me instead of speaking to me, I answered honestly. Claire's eyes filled immediately, but tears landed differently now. Too late. Too strategic. Too tangled with fear to separate guilt from consequence. I grabbed my keys from the counter and walked toward the garage. Where are you going? She asked quietly behind me. I stopped near the doorway without turning around. Meeting with federal accountants tomorrow morning starts at 8. I answered. Daniel wants every original document preserved before subpoenas move. That sentence broke something inside her completely. I heard it in her breathing. In the silence afterward. In the sudden understanding that this story would never shrink back into private damage between husband and wife. Then I finally looked back at her one last time. You know the craziest part, Claire? I said calmly. The affair never destroyed us. The moment you started planning my downfall, while sleeping beside me, already ended the marriage. Her face collapsed quietly after that. No screaming. No dramatic scene. Just the slow realization that she traded a real life for a manufactured fantasy built by people who only valued her while she stayed useful. I stepped into the garage, climbed into my truck, and started the engine while the house sat behind me colder than I had ever seen it. Somewhere inside those walls, hidden cameras still recorded empty rooms for a future courtroom that might never happen now. And as the garage door lifted slowly into the night, one thought stayed with me harder than the betrayal itself. Some people cheat because they are unhappy. Others cheat because they think they deserve more. But the most dangerous people of all are the ones who smile beside you while quietly building the story they plan to bury you inside.